Welcome, class, to today's geometry lesson. Today we will be learning about measuring the volume of rectangular prisms. Some new ideas here today. You'll need your math notebook and a pencil. So once you have those, pause if you need to. Once you have those, we'll resume. So to begin with, go ahead and write down the title or the name of this lesson, the volume of rectangular prisms. And let's just quickly define what these words mean. To begin with, a prism is a three-dimensional shape whose bottom is the same shape as the top. In this case, the bottom of this shape is a rectangle. The top of this shape is a rectangle. We call it a rectangular prism. Today we're going to learn how to measure the volume of these shapes here. What is volume? Well, volume is a way of measuring a 3D shape. Remember, we started learning about three-dimensional shapes recently. Three-dimensional shapes are shapes that have three dimensions. They aren't just flat shapes. So how do we measure volume? Well, do you remember area? Area is the measure of the number of squares that fit inside of a two-dimensional shape or a flat shape. How many squares fit inside? Of course, we could count 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15. But we learned a special shortcut for measuring area, and that shortcut was to multiply the length times the height. In this case, it's 5 times 3. What is 5 times 3? That's 15. The length times the height tells us how many squares fit inside a flat shape. But what if we're working with a three-dimensional shape like this? Well, these aren't squares, so we can't measure them like we did when we were measuring area. These aren't squares. Notice these are cubes. Rectangular prisms can be divided up into cubes, and volume is the measure of how many cubes fit inside a three-dimensional object. So now we'll be counting how many cubes fit inside. So in your math notebook, I'd like you to write down a couple of these terms. You can draw this here if you want to, if that's helpful for you. The first thing we want to notice is that our three-dimensional shape here, our rectangular prism, has length, just like we were measuring before. So go ahead and write this down, length. And it also has height, just like we were measuring before, height. Go ahead and write that down. But notice here that this shape, our new shape, has a new dimension. It's over here. Do you see that? That dimension is called width. There it is, width. It's a third dimension. Our new shape is 3D. It has 3 dimensions. And when we want to find the volume, we're going to have to multiply all 3 dimensions. To begin with, though, just to make this simple, let's just count how many cubes are there. I think this is a good place to start. Let's just count together. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. So we can count that we can count 10 cubes. We can see that that's true. That's pretty easy. But let's try out some math here. Perhaps there's a shortcut or a fast way to count how many cubes are in this, or especially a bigger rectangular prism. So just like we did before with area up here, we're going to start by multiplying the length times the height. So the length for this shape here is, let's see, can you count the length here? We've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. The length is 5. And what is the height of this shape? Can you count? What is the height of this shape? 1, 2. Lastly, what is the width of this shape? This might be a little tricky because it's so obvious, but you see here the width is just 1. There's just 1 cube wide. So our method, our way of finding the volume of this cube here, is to multiply all three dimensions. We're going to go ahead and do that. So we're going to multiply 5 times 2 times 1. Let's see here, well, 5 times 2, that's 10. And 10 times 1, well, that's still 10. So the volume is 10. Let's go ahead and jot down that equation so we don't forget. Write this in your math notebook, please. Just do it one more time here. All right, so in your math notebook, we're going to write volume equals length times height times width. If you wanted to just use the first letter of each of these, you could do that too as a shortcut. You could say V equals L times H times W. That'll be a little shorthand that we use. Let's go ahead and do a couple practice problems here together before we move on. All right. If you need to pause, make sure to do that real quick and make sure you have this written down. Okay, what is the volume of this rectangular prism? Let's give it a try. So we've got the length here is 3. We've got the height here. That would be 2. We've got the width here. That would also be 2. So in your math notebook, go ahead and give this a try. Remember, the volume equals length times height times width. Try this on your own. Pause if you need to. And when you're done, go ahead and unpause, and I'll solve it, and we'll see how you did. All right, if you're done solving this, I'm going to go ahead and work through it. Let's see how this went for you. So here's the length, the height, and the width. So the length is 3 times the height, which is 2, times the width, which is 2. 3 times 2 is 6 times 2. And 6 times 2 equals 12. So if I were to count all the squares here, I'd have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 on the top, and 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 on the bottom. 6 and 6 is 12. All right, so the volume, I would say the volume equals 12. Let's try another one. All right, so here we have the length, which is, here's the length, and we have the height, and the width. Remember, the volume equals length times height times width. All right, in your math notebooks, go ahead and pause if you need to. Try solving this one on your own. When you're done, unpause, and we'll see how it went for you. Okay, if you're done working on this on your own, let's try it together. We've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. The length is 5 times the height, which is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, times the width, which is just 1. All right, so 5 times 5 is 25. 25 times 1 is still 25. So I'd say the volume is 25. All right, this last one I'd like you to try on your own. Please pause if you need to and solve this on your own, and then you can go ahead and unpause, and I'll solve it, and you can see how you did. All right, assuming you have solved this on your own in your math notebook, are you ready to see how I solve it? We'll see if we get the same answer. So the length here is 1, 2, 3, 4. The height here is 1, 2. And the width here is 1, 2, 3. Those are my 3 dimensions. 2 times 4 times 3. Notice it doesn't matter what order I write the numbers. 2 times 4 is 8. 8 times 3 is 24. All right, how'd you do? If this felt pretty good for you, that's fantastic. If you have questions or it seems a little bit challenging, go ahead and try it on your own and the follow-up work a little bit. See if you're able to start with something simple and work your way up to something harder. And make sure to let us know if you have any questions. Good luck.